Please join me in welcoming for our first Lunch and Learn here at USTMAX Center, Dr. Patrick Woock.
It always sounds more impressive, and it really is. I appreciate y'all being here, and I guess there's not much more to tell you about myself. She took care of it all. But it's one of the things that she hit on at the beginning is the way I got into entrepreneurship, all the way at the beginning of the long speech, was I took over a family business. And so I ran, way back when in the day, I ran the first business I took over when I was 26 years old. It was, by the way, way too early, I'll be very honest with you. Was an insurance agent in a very small town, in the middle of nowhere on the south side of Chicago. And our town was a little bit, about the size of this town, we had about a population of 5,000 people. And at that time, unlike here, the city wasn't growing at all. In fact, we were losing people. I think our main export was people. Okay? So we did a very good job, let me tell you, because like I think in 10 years we went from 9,000 to 5,000 people, so we were doing a good job export. Okay? But the one thing that taught me, or one thing, the opportunity that I had in taking over and running that business, because it was a family business, is all the challenges and all the difficulties it is to run a business in a small town. And I'm going to be very frank with you. I've run businesses all around the world, big cities, small cities, and I would say if you look at it in equal, just put them all together, I think running an enterprise in a small town is just as difficult, if not more difficult, than running an enterprise in China or in anywhere else, Ireland or any other places I've run in. Because you run into a lot of situations in dealing with family. You run into a situation where everyone knows you in the town, right? So everyone's in your, like I know at least that a lot of people who are in your stuff all the time. And so you have to always be very careful, not only on like what kind of business you do or how you do your business, but what you say and how you handle things, right? So for all your business owners here, all the people who are here, my hat's off to you, okay? I will tell you, what you do on a daily basis is just as hard, if not harder, than what other people accomplish in the cities of Houston or New York or Shanghai. So you just need to understand that I have a great pride in what we do, right? That being said, I'm going to tell you a few things that I've learned along the way that hopefully will help you. We've gone through a lot of things with COVID, a lot of things that have happened recently, and I hope that, I think we turn this off somehow. I hope these things will help you in regards to, clearly, there we go. One of the things that's come about, and I'm sure you've all gone through this, is, when we're running a business, we're running an organization, we're running a city, we all have a plan, right? I mean, they teach you from the day you're getting out of school to the day probably they put us away, that you need a plan, right? Business plan, organizational plan, city plan. But the real problem is when you have something like COVID, or we had the financial crisis in 2008, all of those plans that we had, they go off the window. And what ends up happening is a lot of the situation that we've seen recently, or over the last few years, a few things happen. The first thing you do is in a reaction to this crazy world-changing COVID or financial crisis, whatever, is you hold on, right? You hold on. That's your first thing. You hold on. We're going to hold through this thing, right? And then, as the crisis formulates and goes through, you start to realize that I might have to do something. And then slowly, maybe after 6 months or a year, you start to realize that, oh my gosh, my business may go out of business. And this is a thing that I've experienced many times, not just in my own business life, but in dealing with SCORE. I was a SCORE mentor, I still am a SCORE mentor for 8 years. SCORE is a part of the Small Business Administration, and we work with business owners yourself. I have counseled over 200 small businesses in my life through SCORE. And I will tell you, when the things go upside down, it is usually changing your idea, changing your plan, changing the way you do things is typically one of the last things that you want to do. Okay? And so what I'm trying to do, hopefully today, is give you some options, some ideas of things you can do next time a situation that we have, like with COVID or the financial crisis or anything that's come along, you'll be better prepared, hopefully after today's presentation. So what did COVID teach us? The first thing that I think COVID really taught us is we need to have a plan B ready. No matter what your business, no matter what your organization is, we have to have a plan B ready in anything you do. So, and you don't necessarily need to do your plan B, but you should have one. Okay. The second thing it taught us is that government, like it or not, government from now on will be more and more involved in business. I know some of us cringe at that idea, right? But I have to tell you, every time we have a crisis, every time I have a situation like this, government gets more and more involved in business. And they're involved with this last time, given the rollout of the vaccine and dealing with the PPP. We're dealing with all of these fundings that they have sent out. I call it free money, right? I do not think their involvement or their integration into our businesses, into your business, is going to go away anytime soon, if not become more prevalent. And I'm going to explain to you some reasons why. I'll explain to you some reasons why I don't believe this. And lastly, the third thing I think that taught us is it's good to plan, as we always know in business owners, we always know in organizations and city runners, is it's good to wish for the best. Well, as my daddy always told me, plan for the worst. Right? Always be prepared. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And things when things don't work out for you, how do you handle that as a small business owner? Now, I'm going to tell you today things that I experienced in my own life. I'm not going to tell you theories or ideas. I'm going to tell you things that I've actually experienced. And these are going to be from my side of the fence. Okay. Now, I'll be also very frank with you. Entrepreneurship is like, it's an incredible science. It's an incredible thing. The way you start a business and the way you start a business, and you may be in the same field, doing the same exact thing, but the way you go about it can be completely different. And the way you achieve success can be completely different. And so everything I tell you, I have to understand is, once again, from my point of view and what I saw in my own personal life. Okay. So I had a friend of mine, a couple of friends that I mentor said, Patrick, we had this whole COVID thing, is business planning dead? I mean, because I had a business plan, I knew what I'm doing, I had it going forward, I got my operation set up, I got my logistics set up, and then COVID comes in and wipes it all out. You know, just this terminology, if you were talking, wipe out his entire business. And to be frank, business planning is not dead. You still need to plan, you still need to understand all the normal structures you need to do. None of it is changing. You know, you need to have your operations, your assets, your company finance, your brand, all of these things that are important to building your company. But as I said earlier on, you need to always have a plan B in case your plan A doesn't work. And what I call that, and we'll talk a little bit about, is your transition plan. What are you going to do? What are you going to do if your main plan, your main idea, your main focus doesn't work out? Here's an example of one fellow. This is in Denver. He sells food, he has a restaurant, and guns, right? He should move to Texas, right? It's been imperfect. But can you imagine trying to go to someone like a VC and say, I want to sell food and guns, right? They'd be like, what the heck do they have to do with each other, right? Do people like, get their eggs Benedict and a block, Does this somehow go together? But what this fellow thought of is, what happens is everything falls apart. What happens is, if we go into bankruptcy, what happens if the economy declines? Well, in the area he lived in, he found out when the economy declined last time in 2008, people started buying guns. So it's like, So he took his passion for guns, which he saw, when things go bad, it's going to go up, and his passion for food and brought him together. So he has his plan A and plan B all together. Now, when you look at this, it looks a little strange, right? But it shows his understanding that he's planning for the worst, but hoping for the best. Okay? And so this is a very unique example of how you can do both of those together. So transition planning. This is something I recommend to all businesses to do. I'm going to give you 6 things to look at, but transition planning is something that all companies need to be doing. Okay? All companies need to do. And this is what, when I was talking about having a plan B, this is what we should be doing now. This is what we should be doing now. And I'm going to go over each one of these. But I think it's very clear to us when we look at our businesses today and look at what's unfolded for the last year, we all need to understand that this is going to happen again. What happened in COVID is not unique. If you go back, it's like 12 years, maybe even 10 years for some cases. 10 years ago, we were in the financial crisis. You go back from 2008 to 1999, we had the dot-com, dot-boom. We are repeating these over and over and over again every 8 to 10 years. So the idea that this plan B is just some kind of had to work through COVID now. We don't need that plan B anymore. I'll go back to no. Like everyone else, we're all going to get up, right? We're all going to get back to work. And guess what we're all going to do? Are we going to remember, like 3 years from now, remember what happened in COVID? No, we'll be like, that COVID thing is never going to happen again, right? I got my mask on, right? I'm probably got those full body suits, we're all walking around in those, right? I would have been in full body suit, wouldn't it? Wouldn't see my face, perfect, right? But you see what I'm saying? This keeps repeating itself. And the smart business owner, the smart organization owner, the smart town will plan, will have that plan B ready. And so we're going to talk a little bit about each one of these. And I would say every 8 years, history repeats itself. Every 8 years, we're right back to where we were. So there'll be some of these things that are going to be very, Dr. Woock, I know that stuff. You don't need to tell me that, but there's going to be some other things here that are very useful. One of the first things I would do is make sure you have a transition plan. Make sure you have a transition plan. It doesn't have to be complicated. I think a lot of us, you ever try to convince a customer or try to convince someone to do a business plan, right? Especially nowadays. I think I sent Omar one once, and Omar's like, these are 35 pages, right? It's like 35 pages, right? I'm sure Omar's looking at it and going, I can do the first 2, right? The other 33 are on your own. Right? What I would recommend, when you leave today, just take a 1 sheet of paper. I'm a 1 sheet of paper kind of guy, right? Write down 8 years from now, if this happens again, what do I want to transition my business to? I'm looking at all of these things going on. We're moving more online. Things are becoming more outsourced. Things are becoming more automated, okay? And here's the one. I know some of us strong silent type are getting kind of mushy about it, but people are searching for meaning. They want a meaning in life, right? I told my dad, I said, Dad, I'm searching for meaning in life. He looks and goes, go get a job. You'll find meaning somewhere along the line. Stop talking to me about this. touchy-feely stuff, you know? Okay, Dad, got it. But the younger generation are all searching for meaning. They want to know they want to hear your story, right? They want to know how you connect with them, right? And this is, no matter what happens, COVID, financial crisis, the one thing I want you to notice that came out of all of this craziness, let's call it craziness, okay, is the trends that were already happening, they got accelerated. They got accelerated. The push to online became faster. Okay? Automation, outsourcing became faster. People were outsourcing, automating faster. And the search, because we're all isolated now, no one talks or sees anyone, the search for meaning and connection is even more, people are more desperate for it. So all of the trends that were already happening, they were just accelerated. And one thing I always remind people is hindsight is 20/20. Hindsight is always 20/20. Well, if I knew COVID was coming, I would have done this. Well, I'm here to tell you, 8 years is not far away, and I can assure you, it'll catch up to you, and you have hindsight right now. If you start planning and thinking about it now, when that 8 years comes, you'll be ready. Okay? Okay. So the other thing too, a lot of you are business owners, and one of the things that I remember as a business owner is, especially growing in a small town, is word gets around on what's going on, what's going down. The word gets around on what's going down. Anytime you have a transition of business, anytime you have to kind of maybe restart or rethink what you're doing, who are you going to talk to? You talk to the local lawyer, he's probably going to go out with beers with your competitor, right? Who are you going to talk to? I always say, always have someone, a mentor, or a moderator, or someone you can turn to who's not going to talk to everyone in town, right? Someone who knows your field, who knows what you're doing, okay? Willing to help you make tough decisions, and is trusted by you, someone you've known for a long time. Because I'm going to tell you, and I know a lot of you know this already, you've been through this yourselves already, is when you have to make those tough decisions, and it's all on your back, right? You can feel the weight. I remember I had to lay off 3 people in my first company. I lived in a small town, 5,000 people. Those 3 people I knew I was going to see, at the AMP, or I was going to see them at the Dairy Queen. I was going to definitely see them again. What are you going to do? You're not going to ignore them, right? How are you going to feed them? It gets really hard to let people go, but sometimes it's necessary so that other people can keep their jobs. So having an outside person you can turn to help you with your decision making is extremely hard. Take some of that weight off your back. It took me years to find someone that I trusted. And then, of course, when they give you an opinion, what do we do when someone gives you an opinion you don't like? Ignore it, right? Business is going down. Person, he's a brilliant finance guy. He runs the bank. He knows what's going on. He's telling you, he says, what's your name, sir? John. John, I was going to say John. So John, you need to cut and run. I got all the responsibilities of the people. He says, John, save the company, save the people. I don't know. But having a trusted person at least gives you, we're probably going to ignore it, but it gives you at least a voice to listen to.
Or you'll just take a long time making the decision.
And which is just as bad, right? Because you can end up, bleeding out. This is bad. And that's really the hardest thing, I was young when I took over my family enterprise. So it was easier to make decisions, right? Foolish and stupid decisions, but decisions, right? But I think we all have been in a situation by letting go, doing things that are challenging, or it all gets around. right? Especially if, like, laying out people is like the last thing my family would ever want to do, right? It's tough, it's tough. And the other thing, of course, is talking to your clients, making sure your clients know. Remember, when your company or business is going through transition, your clients are probably also going through the exact same thing. And I will tell you, the easiest way to handle this, there's no really easy way to handle transition. The easiest way to do this is to make sure, once again, if you have that plan, say, hey, I got a plan. I know what I'm going to do. I know you're going to go through change. We're all going through change, and make them understand that we're all in this together. Right? And you need to demonstrate that this is a planned thing and you know what you're doing, and you give them some stability, because they're probably sitting in a world where everything's falling apart and they want some stability. They want you to be there and be a stable part of your life. Any questions about these, or do they make sense? Other things you probably already knew. I'm sure. I mean, you're all very smart people.
Just Dr. Woock, I am monitoring the chat for questions that might come from our Zoom participants.
Anyone from there?
So far, none.
Oh, yeah, good. You should make sure they're still awake. Stakeholders, the same thing. Transitioning employees, once again, I said I'm not probably going to comment too much on this, but transition employees, always very tough. I think one of the things that helped me a lot when I first started my business is I realized in the beginning what employees were, that I could let go and what I couldn't. But I think those would be the things I probably want to talk about. But the one thing I do want you to leave with 100% today, is go to your companies, go to your organizations, and any process that you do or your employees do or this, have them write it down, what they do verbatim, exactly step by step. All of the great S&P 500, you hear these S&P 500 companies, and they always say, write down your processes, right? You go and you hear it like on the Shark Tank, they say, where are your processes? You have it all written down. Now, here's the best part. We all know what the answer to this one is. But you go to your employee and say, hey, employee, you've been with me for 15 years. Would you mind writing down everything you do all day? What's the immediate thing going to go through your head?
As soon as I get it, I'm getting fired.
There you go. There you go. So not really an easy thing to do. So what I would recommend is probably not do it during COVID, right? If you do it during COVID, what are they going to think? You're getting fired, right? But somewhere along the line, we have to do this, okay? It's not S&P 500 standard. This should be standard for every business. You should know all the processes should be written down. Everyone should be able to look at, this is what I do. Even the boss needs to write down, this is what I do on a daily basis, this is how I do it, just in case you're not there. Right? Right? How would you like your wife to update? Would you mind writing down all the processes? I wonder if I'm being replaced. But do this, it's absolutely important. I think if there's one thing, one of the few things I want you to take in the writing down what every one of your employees do, fired, not fired, COVID, no COVID, absolutely important for you to make sure all the processes, the marketing, the accounting, the finance, the salespeople who don't like to write down anything, right? Have me write down what I'm doing? Are you sure you want to know where I'm going all day? Tracking down. Absolutely important. You cannot transition a business quickly, easily, without knowing what people do and without the ability to understand, can I cut this off? How can I modify this to work? As I said earlier, government is going to be in business more and more. This is my prediction. It's not 100%. I'm sure we all have different opinions on this. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen. but the reason why I think government will be more and more in pit business is, I want to skip through this. Give me a second. Okay. The reason why I want to do this is, it should be actually PPP, it's not PPE. I was going back, you know, I was making pallets, right? And they're all out of plastic. So PPE is plastic, by the way, so I get my dyslexia operating, but it's PPP. I deal a lot with the McNair Center. We deal a lot with the Houston SBA, Small Business Administration. We deal with SCORE, SBDC, all of these groups. And I had a long conversation with the SBA and the SBDC about what businesses are succeeding, what businesses are succeeding during COVID, what businesses aren't. And they said, they came to me and said, Patrick, he says, it's very clear to us what's happened. He said, the businesses that were able to get the PPP loan or access to money during COVID, they're surviving. 100%, they're surviving. Not thriving, surviving. But the ones that were not able to get money, the ones that didn't have access to capital, they're gone, or going. And he says, I'm going to tell you another interesting layer to the story. He says, if you go to the poorest areas, who should be the people getting the loans, you know, we always say, oh, our government's helping out the people who don't have advantage, right? They're supposed to be there, right? The areas which are the most disadvantaged in Houston receive the least amount of loans. So the area that needed the aid are receiving the least. And there are many businesses who are coming from the other side, we call it the other side of Houston. They were not able to get PPP, they weren't able to get PPP loans. They don't know how to fill out the forms, they don't know where to go to, they don't have the connections. And so the SBA, because of this, had set up additional grants to provide funding to those areas. But this is going to be a continuous thing. The businesses that survive in Houston, the businesses that survive anywhere had access to capital. Very difficult business. But they were able to understand, they were able to get that capital not from a bank, not from a smart business owner, smart business lady, but they got it from the government. And in many ways, the government decided who won and who lost, right? Who filled out the forms and who didn't. Does that make sense? Shouldn't there be competition beside that? So here's my idea is the ones that had very understood how to fill out the forms, knew where to go for the money, very similar to the normal business, but that access to capital, that understanding how to get funding from the government, from now on will become very valuable in any type of crisis situation. Because as we know, everything collapses, right? Not you go to your bank, hey, you know, the stock market's crashing, right? I don't have any business. Will you give me a loan? Do bankers give loans during depressions? Not so much. So government basically becomes the go-to. Okay. So that's why it's my feeling that you're seeing more and more, because out of this crisis, the ones that really won, the ones that were really survived, were the ones who had access to capital. And access to capital did not come from banks, didn't come from venture capital, did not come from angel networks, it came from the government. Yes.
A couple points though. I think, you know, as you look at the whole PPP thing, there's a component, a significant component you're missing. And you're missing management or ownership, because I think I've seen a lot of examples and know people that, let's take an example of an HVAC company. Got HVAC company A and HVAC company B. One is ready to go out of, they both get money, one goes out of business and one's thriving. It's not, is capital a component? And the answer is yes, but it's also the management aspects of it. So that's kind of one question I would throw out there. The second one, it's you can say it's the government, and we can talk about government, top pros and cons, but it's really the banks that really administer that. So if you don't have a relationship with the bank, but if you don't have a bank account, you're not gonna have a relationship. So there's a banking relationship that's very important, and if you don't have it, it still goes back to the capital aspect of it. So when you start looking and getting some data about this part of the city got a lot of money from PPP, and this part of the company, or this part of the city didn't, is it because of the lack of banking relationships more so than the government? And you fix that instead of talking about the government?
No, I 100% agree. I think banking relationships play a very significant role in what happened, 100%. I think the point being is I don't think a lot of people who needed the capital understood that point. That I think, so that's why you could probably look at it as a government issue, but I 100% agree with it. I think it made that relationship much more important. Here's the $1 million question: should it be that way? You know, should you as a business owner? I mean, you need to have access to capital to a bank, right? But shouldn't we have another mechanism for people who don't have access, like some of us who are lucky enough, where they can get capital? And that was really one of the things that when we talked with the people at the SBA, that's why they tried to set up a whole other mechanism for people who didn't have relationships that they could do.
Kind of question that premise, because then I think then now it's a discussion about how actively involved should the government be engaged in the business community, or should the business community, banking, should you really be working on a relationship within the business community? And we can also talk about the PPP in general. It was being administered through the SBA, which if you look at how they process loans, it's a situation where they do a relatively, if you look at it, a relatively small number of loans on an annual basis. Okay, now all of a sudden, what we did with the PPP is by 500% or some large number, trying to push all these loans to an organization that's not built for speed or ease. And I've worked with them, so I know they're not built for speed or ease. So now we push a whole bunch of stuff that we know is going to take a long time. If we hadn't had the banks doing this, we'd still be trying to get the first PPP loans out.
Yes, I disagree. Yes.
I think there's another underlying reason, though, that is almost a systemic reason, is if I'm in business and I'm in that category you mentioned, that I don't have access to these loans. Well, the reality is, say, in this community, that if I didn't have access, I could go to my Chamber of Commerce, here at the Conroe Chamber. They set up and provided access for communications resources that would help you to get that loan, whether you had access or not. And I think what we saw in this, call it government-private relationship between the banks and the government, is all the banks did was do what they normally do. They lend money, and all of them do it in different ways, as well as. I mean, they have their own procedures, rules, and whatnot. So some of them funded the large clients, customers, because that's their focus. Many of them didn't fund the small ones, like clients of mine that were, very small businesses that needed $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. But there were others that did. You just had to open the right door. And I guess what I'm saying is it's not really an indictment, but it is a fact that these small businesses that found themselves left out, I would suggest that they typically did not on their own volition over a period of time be part of a chamber, be part of organizations, which that's minimal cost. So you didn't have to have the bank, but you needed a place to go to get some directions and advice. And I can't speak for the other chambers around the country, but this chamber went way, way out of its way, which I think is part of its mission, to help these people, help anyone can. So the idea that we're going to substitute, say, that situation with the government coming in and setting up an office or expanding, I don't know why we need to do that, is what I'm saying. If I'm in business, I need to be part of business organizations, if I'm gonna be successful.
And I need to ask for help. Another challenge with entrepreneurs that I find is they're gonna, you know what, they're gonna muscle their way through any problem. And asking for help, and maybe for guys especially, sorry, we don't want to ask for we don't have to even ask for directions to get somewhere. Right? So to ask for help when we don't know how to do something is a challenge.
I agree. I don't think it's a situation. I think it would be not as evasive as government setting up an office. But I do think that there was, and more to your point in dealing with banking, right? There was clearly winners and losers. And those winners had relationships with the chamber, as you were correct. And I've seen this too. I've seen some chambers, they're just right along with yours. They're out there pushing it, they're out helping. I'll tell you, I belong to the Asian Chamber in Houston. I get a notice every week. You know, the new PPP is coming up, get ready to sign, we're gonna get everyone together, you know, and they make it like a group thing. And then I've gone to a couple other chambers who won't be mentioned, right? Not a word. Right? So I guess really getting to your point is, and getting to what I'm trying to get to is, there was a deciding factor, be a government, business relationship, with chamber. There were some deciding factors. If you, let's call it, if you were involved, you had some involvement with your banker, you had some involvement with the government, you had some involvement with the chamber, you succeeded. I think we all can agree with that. And if you didn't, you kind of like you said, man, I'm going to stand on my own, I'm not going to ask any directions, you probably did. Or you're probably not doing what I said about that. Very good point, thank you, I appreciate it. And it's good not to be held one pocket, so I appreciate it. But I'm going to come to the last part, and we'll open up for questions. This part is in dealing with selling or closing your business, evaluating your business and transitioning your business. Okay? Evaluating, selling, and closing. And to be very frank, I've had to close 2 businesses in my life. Trust me, there's nothing I think anyone has ever been through. It's like one of the worst things. It's like losing a child. It's probably not as bad, trust me, but it's pretty close, right, as an entrepreneur. So I've had to do that twice, and it's not fun, right? So I'm going to tell you a little bit of what I know in these regards, and I appreciate, once again, I think we're a good crowd here, so I think I really appreciate your feedback. One of the things I always encourage people to do nowadays, and it's something that we don't do as much, is grow a buyer. Get someone you know, either a family member, an employee, even a third party, but start growing and developing that buyer for your business today. I cannot tell you, I used to teach succession planning up in northern Minnesota. Okay, northern Minnesota is not as challenging as here. Northern Minnesota, the amount of startups and the amount of business closings are like this. Business closings accelerating, startups is declining. And they're in a situation, if they don't transition these current businesses, they're going to end up with nothing. So there's a huge push in those areas to start doing this. Be it you want your legacy, you want people to remember who you are, you want your next generation, your family to have money, you want to retire, I'm sure all of you want to retire, happy, right? Be on the beach somewhere or the mountains or wherever you want to be. But this is, as I went through northern Minnesota, I started talking to people, and I would go from town to town, working with the University of Minnesota, working with the Development Commission for the state of Minnesota, going from town to town, talking to people in their community, in their chambers. I would ask them, how many of you have a transition plan? How many of you have a succession plan? How many of you have a buyer set up that you're going to sell to? 30%. 30%. The other 70%, no idea. No idea. Some of them, one fellow, he's like 62 years old. He says, I'm going to keep working until I'm 75. God love you, man, right? God love him. And he runs a $15 million company. He says, I can't trust any of my employees with this company. None of my kids are any good. None of my kids are any good. And, you know, it's a small town. If I tell anyone I'm selling, they're probably just going to cut me out. Probably just going to cut me out. They're going to my clients and say, hey, John's leaving. He's closing shop. Come with me. Small town. So I would say start identifying now. Identify a family member, an employee, stakeholder, and maybe even a student. One of the things I have with SCORE over the last 7 years, is I've counseled people on how to transition a business. I've helped train people for the next generation. You can always turn to University of St. Thomas or people like ourselves. We're here to help you. I'll tell you, I know a lot of bright, smart, young students who'd love to learn your business, who'd love to learn what you're doing. Or if you have a client who's thinking about retiring, there are so much smart people out there, and you don't need to say, oh, you know, come on in, Omar, come on, take my business over. No. You do it like a long-term interview, or like a marriage, you know. Oh, engagement. Oh, I never know. But have them come in for a year or two, have them feel the business out, you like it? Okay, if not, let it go. No matter what you do, if you run a business, you owe it yourself to start finding a buyer, building that buyer, training that buyer now. Being a student from St. Thomas, an heir that you can trust, or an employee. Now, I'll tell you, statistics. We all love statistics, don't we? We all love statistics. Statistically, an employee does best out of all of us. If you can bring up an employee, have them, you know, maybe take them to school, teach them some workshops, make sure they can take over the reins, it's statistically the best to take over the company. The worst typically is an outsider, someone who's not from your organization, who's not an heir to your company, and someone who's not from your hometown, doesn't know your business. And unfortunately, a vast majority of the businesses who do get sold, they typically get sold to outsiders. It's becoming a bigger and bigger trend. And so that's something that I want to leave with you. Some of you have, you know, as you look at transitioning your business or maybe selling your business, you run into these business evaluators. I don't know, hopefully there's none in the audience here. But you run into these business evaluators who will help you evaluate your business. So they'll sit there and say, I'm only going to charge you $20,000. I'm going to evaluate your business, right? I'm going to save you $20,000 today, okay? One of the easy ways to do it is, once again, if you can learn to list your assets and liabilities, we all do this all the time. We probably do it for our taxes all the time. 3 years revenue, we all do that. But the most important thing, again, guess what shows up? Write down your processes. How odd it showed up again.
It's an asset.
It is an asset. It is probably the most valuable thing you could have in a company. Having your processes written down. Because when you transition that business to another heir, to another person, or when you sell that business, having an ability to show them how the company is run is worth its weight in gold. Now, if you can't write it down, if you can't show someone who's looking at your business, you say, oh, I got all these things going on, I got $1 million in orders, you know, and all this stuff is coming in. It's like, well, where's it written down? I don't see, I can look at the books, but where's things written down? Most likely you're going to get a pass. So that's why I'm not a really big fan of business evaluators. But business brokers, they tend not to be too bad. They'll charge you a very high commission, but they'll typically find someone. But once again, if you can't find someone, you need to sell to a third party, you can't find an heir, you can't find an employee, list on your assets, 3 years revenue, write your processes down. Closing, I will close on closing. Once again, good to have that moderator, have that third person give the closure business. Good to have someone who takes that weight off your shoulders and helps you decide, because once again, deciding closing business is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. Second, when you finally make a decision, move fast, because you know, small town, the word spreads so fast, you can't, it's like lightning. Move fast. Third should be number one, consult your family first, because nothing is worse. And trust me, you're gonna go through a whole tough situation. You're making sure that they're on your side, they know what's gonna happen. It's gonna help you through those hard times. And last, prepare for the worst. You know, sometimes people, when businesses close, a lot of talk goes around small towns. So prepare for the worst. You never know what's gonna happen. And that's about it. That's all I have for you today. Now I have, I believe, some time for Q&A. And, you know, anything that you like, dislike, thoughts, appreciate it.
Well, Don, I recognize a lot of this information from your course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving my secrets away. Anyone else? Yes.
Just picking up on the internal buyer, which I found very interesting, to cultivate that relationship. And one of the things I do, I'm a Silver Fox advisor, you may be familiar with that group. I've been doing it 15, 20 years. And prior to that, I was a multiple business owner, entrepreneur. Is that I will, at this point in my career, I won't take a new client on, startup, unless they have what I simply call an exit plan, which ties into your internal buy. And it doesn't have to be detailed, but they need to know when they're going to sell the business, how much, and to whom being a category, you know, whether it's family or a strategic buyer. And we try to identify those things right up front. And it's amazing how many people start businesses that resist. They just can't get their arms around, well, I'm going to be here for 5, 10, 20 years. I get that part of it. But you make so many decisions every day in your business, or at least on a planning perspective, like borrowing money, that play into the actual transition or selling, transferring into the business. And why would you want that over here on one piece of paper saying this? It can always be changed, but it lends itself to better decision making. Whether you meet the criteria, the exact year or whatever, that is okay. But I think it's very important for everyone that's in business to sit down and think about at least at a minimum those 3 ideas. When you want to exit, how much do you plan to walk away with, or need or want to walk away with for retirement or your next investment? And then third, what category of buyer are you going to build this business to appeal to?
100% agree. I think, I've met a lot of business owners for all the years, and they always think they're going to live forever, right? The business is going to be around forever, and we're never going to have a financial crisis, ever. We're never going to have a financial crisis. I mean, all their plans, I mean, once in a while you do, but the plans are always like informative, right? And when you sit down and you say, you know, who's going to take over your business in 10 years? You know, they're 65, right? Who's going to take over your business? Oh, I'm going to, you know, got another 10 years in me. Come on, you know, who's going to take over the business? Well, you know, Jack and Suzanne, they're good people, but they don't understand, you know, how to run a business. Well, train them so they can take over your business. No, I don't want to do it. Come on, train them, build them, grow them. Let them take over your business. You know, wouldn't it be great if, instead of being here in the northern woods of Minnesota, landing on a beach in Sarasota? Oh, okay, that makes a little sense. Okay.
You know, one time I was called into a client, and this is one of the things that really bothers me about folks. They work hard. Typically, they're not taking lots of money out of the business if they're doing a good job, right? And so that in game, that last transition is the most important. I had a couple that built a business up 20, 30 years. They both worked hard. They were smart. And they sat down with me and said, we need your help. Guide us through this exit. And they were willing to hire a national brokerage firm to help them find the right buyer, particularly a strategic buyer. Anyway, the long and short of it is their business was like the economy or whatever was down at a low point.
Yeah.
Their 2 years of history, 3 years going back, and I said, are you sure you need to sell right now? They hadn't planned for it, that's my point. Convinced them, they hung on, and for the next 3 years, the business literally could have gone straight up, but it went like that because everything fell into place with the economy and whatnot for their particular industry.
Yeah.
And they sold their business for 3 to 4 times more than they would have 3 years before.
Exactly.
They weren't prepared. And, you know, it would have been a shame to cash out so cheap.
And I think, to be frank, I think we ran into a lot of those situations during this last crisis. And it was saddening to see some of the businesses that people are working on tirelessly 25 years, 20, in some cases almost 30 years, closing their businesses. And, you know, family businesses and things that they, you know, have worked on together and they're gone. So,
So,
yeah,
sorry, real quick. So one thing that I've kind of seen, and it's like with my generation, but even younger, and it's touching on the points where you want to bring someone within to build up and kind of take over. But like with the younger generations, they're so like, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. Like, how can I grow like in 90 days, you know? They want to be at the top of the company in 90 days. Like, that's what I'm seeing. And even like, you know, the way I was taught is like, you stay with the company and you can like build up from there. But I feel like these younger generations, even my generation too, is like, okay, what, like on to the next thing. And I think it goes into like that soul searching as well. But I mean, how do you, I guess just coming up with ways to persuade them to stay, you know?
it's an excellent question. I think, don't get me wrong, I mean, you're not gonna hand over your business to someone who just walked in the door.
Right.
But if they've been working for you for a couple of years and they appear to be someone that you want to keep on, say, look, I know probably 15 years from now, I'm thinking about selling this business and I'd like to train you. You know, like a management training course. I mean, they do that in corporation, we'll give you a management training course, and who knows, like, you know, in 5 years, I'll start giving you a percentage of the company, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I think one of the things we don't think of, we really think of management training groups, training plans, and all these are for large corporations. They're not. You know, and I think if you can empower people and say, you know, I'm willing to give you 5% of the company, but it'll be over a period of time, and I'll train you, and we'll send you to school, have you do your MBA. Then I think then people start seeing that there's a value here. But I think the challenge is we don't encourage people to do that. We don't do that. And so it's easier for them to move around versus being committed. But I'll tell you, as a person who did all that, who was 26 and took over a business, once you become committed, once you see where you're going and you see people who are committed to building you up, you feel like you're a part of our family. You don't want to leave. You want to be a part of that family. Right? So it's a very good point.
So to Rick's point, unfortunately, there's too many owners that wake up in the morning and say, gee, I want to sell my business. And there's really a preparation time when it comes to maximizing the value of your company. It's your biggest asset generally as an owner. And if you don't have 3 to 5 years, you're not going to be able to maximize the value of your company. There's a lot of things you can do. With that, I thought was I saw some interesting data yesterday about pre-COVID and now, so kind of not post-COVID, but through COVID, but when it comes to people that are thinking about selling their business, and I think the average time period was 10 years, and that started decreasing with COVID. And okay, so that's kind of understandable. The other thing that I thought was interesting was that selling to an outsider had been, I think, like my numbers may be off a little bit, about 45%. That had moved to 50%. And where did it come from? Selling to a family member decreased by 5%, which is kind of interesting, right?
Wow. Okay.
And so you look at that and you don't know why, but I think that it may be because with COVID, the owners are looking at it and saying, I don't want my family involved. or have to put up with what I've had to put up with. I don't, that's just pure conjecture on my part, but it was interesting to see that the shift in where they thought they would exit, or how they thought they would exit the business.
100% agree. Very good point. Very good point.
I want to touch on something you said. Everybody knows we're living in a one-thing society. Your challenge as a business owner is to keep up with the space, keep giving them reasons to say, either more pay, more value, more responsibility, something that makes them have ownership of what they're doing. So it's a challenge, but that's your challenge. It's to make them, well, she gave me this, so I need to give her that. Doesn't reciprocate 100% of the time, no, it doesn't. But that's your challenge, to keep them. And it doesn't come down to pay all the time. It comes down, like you said, training. I'll give you 1% ownership. I'll make you, manager of new parking spot. You never know what that magic thing is. That's your challenge. And until you solve it, and it's going to be different for him. That's for me. Everybody's motivation and what's to do is different. Some of it is generic. Just occurred to keep pushing on and find out what makes it. What's that magic for the person?
I have to wonder it at this point. This is such a
One last thing before you.
great discussion.
If any of you have any questions about transitioning or helping your business, or you need, because I'm a SCORE member, I'm always willing to help out. Hit me up. If you're looking to bring someone on to maybe take over your company, call me up. I know a lot of brilliant students, right? So anything we can do, University of St. Thomas is here to help you. Okay, so please always remember that for your point.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick. Whoa. It seems to me like this might be part one of what needs to be a series of talks related to the subject of entrepreneurship. Sounds like there's a lot more that you could dive into. That was really great, very interesting points that you had to make. And I wanted to just come up really quick, and I hate to stop the conversation short, but we do want to be respectful for everyone's time, realizing that we are in the middle of a business day. And so we thank you all very much for being here with us, both via Zoom and here in person. If you do have a few extra minutes and can indulge us, I would like to ask Brenda Venegas to come up and just give you like a 1 or 2 minute briefing on some of the things that we have happening at the USTMAX Center, because we do look to our new friends and neighbors to help us spread the word about what we're doing here. And before I do that, though, let me point out that those of you who are here with us in person, you have gifts underneath your seats. So please be sure to take your gifts home with you today. And if any of you on the Zoom would like to come by at any time that's convenient for you, we actually have gifts for you as well. So Brenda, please come up.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you again for being here. We are definitely really excited to see everyone here in person and via Zoom on our first Lunch and Learn at USTMAX. So just to tell you a little bit about other things we have at USTMAX, we offer online classes and on-site support. So we have a variety of online degrees that you can all check out on our website, which is USTMAX.com. So on Zoom, I shared the little flyer, and I have here up front with a little barcode that you can scan with your phone, and that can give you information on our website. Also our social media, you can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at USTMAX Center. So please follow us, and then you can stay in touch and in the loop about everything we have going on here. In February, we have a couple of things coming up. We have an information session on February 18th, and that will be a general information session about what we do here at USTMAX. We'll be talking a little bit more about the programs, the degrees, and what the center is about. So please join us. That's going to be via Zoom. And again, on our website, USTMAX.com, you can find more information on the degrees and just articles and this and that about the center. So again, thank you so much for visiting us, and follow us.
All right, thank you, Brenda. And once again, thank you, Dr. Woock, for coming up and being here with us at the USTMAX Center today. And to all of you, once again, we really appreciate you. It's a pleasure being part of this community, and we're looking forward to more things down the road. We will have other subjects for our lunch and learns that we will be scheduling on a quarterly basis. And so keep tuned in for what's coming next. If you have any ideas for us, feel free to message us in any way. So thanks for zooming in, and bye everyone. We'll see you next time. Have a great weekend.